This week on Informed Consent with Dr. Joseph Morris.
I've had it where it feels like I'm walking on 1,000 knives. Every single nerve at the bottom of my feet are like completely inflamed, and I have to walk on the edges of my feet just to do anything because it's so painful.
Hi, this is Dr. Joe Morris. Join me this week as I speak with Laura Brock, a freedom rights activist and parental advocate, as she talks about her experience with living with lupus on Informed Consent. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Joe Morris, and I am the host of the radio podcast Informed Consent. Tune in weekly as I interview everyday people like you and me throughout the communities as they share their experiences and knowledge regarding health matters that will keep you informed and empowered. As always, it takes a village working together to make a difference. This is Informed Consent.
Thank you for listening to the radio podcast Informed Consent with Dr. Joe Morris, reminding you to live well, laugh often, and enjoy life.
Informed Consent.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Joe Morris, and thank you again for tuning in to Informed Consent. Again, I'm your host, and on the airways we have today Ms. Laura Brock. Laura is a health freedom activist and parental rights advocate. She has a passion for psychology, leadership, and believes in lifelong learning, development, and growth. She also believes in helping others into achieving the best person they can be. She has a passion for teaching people to research and advocate for themselves, i.e., doing their own thing. However, she's most passionate about informed consent. She's here today to spread awareness about systemic lupus, aka lupus. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hey. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here, Laura. So we only have a short time, only about a half hour. So with no further ado, I would like to get into some of the questions regarding lupus and just your experience. So can you start off by talking about, just in general layman's terms, what is lupus?
Sure. So lupus actually has 3 different types. You hear the word lupus. Typically, when someone speaks about lupus, they're talking about systemic lupus erythematosus, which is an all body, all encompassing autoimmune disease where nothing is off limits. It can impact bones, joints, tendons, skin, ligaments, your blood, muscles, any organ. And it is absolutely, it's a diagnosis that nobody wants. That's for sure. There's also discoid lupus, which is a skin lupus. Um, Most notably, the singer Seal. If you've ever seen the scars on his face, those are actually from lupus, discoid lupus. And lupus means wolf bite. And it gets its name from discoid lupus, where people will get butterfly rashes on their face, which is a telltale sign of discoid lupus or really any kind of lupus. But it can result in those deep scars that Seal has. And then a third type of lupus is drug induced lupus. And it's caused by the use of certain medications. And once people get off medicine, whatever medicine is causing the symptoms, then they will subside and things will go back to normal. But every single one of these is an autoimmune response, and it can come and go. It comes in waves, which are called flares.
So Laura, is this lupus? Is it contagious?
No, thank goodness. It's not contagious. They actually really don't know what causes lupus, unfortunately. It has been linked to different things, hormones, genetics. Well, not genetics as far as attached to a gene. They say it's hereditary, but not genetic as far as, Down syndrome. You can see it in actual gene sequence. But lupus tends to run in families, which is why they believe it does have a hereditary piece to it, but they really don't know why one person gets it and why one person doesn't. It could have to do with environmental factors and a combination of all those things, including genetics and hormones and, diet and all those good things. But they don't, there's no magical formula. If you have this, then you will end up with lupus,
Well, let's
unfortunately.
right. So let's talk about some of the possible triggers that you may think contribute to for what we say a lupus flare.
Yeah. So triggers, they are very elusive. You don't really know, with the exception of there are certain things that you want to be careful of. For me, particular, stress. If I get stressed out, the chances of me having a lupus flare skyrocket. I mean, literally skyrocket. I can tell you, there was a time that I was supposed to be moving out of my house, and I was stressed out. I had things going on with work. I had things going on with my kids' school. And lo and behold, without a doubt, I was knocked out, like flat on my back, couldn't move. Absolutely the most, horrible pain ever. And it's stress. It's stress. Just it and really, and this goes for anyone. Stress will knock down your immune system, and that's why people need to be really careful about what they allow to really get to them and stress them out. Our immune system is what keeps us, healthy. And the last thing you want in lupus is your immune system actually, flipping and attacking yourself. But other things that have affected me personally are the sun. Something about being in the sun can, I have stories of going out to the beach and, hanging out and having fun and thinking nothing of it. And then boom, I'm hit with a lupus flare and I'm down. Flares could be, weeks, or they could be days, or they could be months. Some people have flares that last years. So you have to be really careful. Another thing that can affect people, anyone, is diet. What you eat affects your body, and even what you put on your skin. One of the things that I started researching, because of my lupus, is what kind of chemicals we're allowed to put on our skin, and in the United States in particular. And they have, very little oversight on what chemicals and what kind of toxins are allowed in our skincare. So I personally have moved to more of a cleaner regimen for that particular reason. But like I said, they don't really know what the triggers are. It could be a viral trigger, some kind of bacteria, but they really don't know. They can't pinpoint, like, if again, if then type scenarios with lupus.
So it sounds like diet, stress are some of the major contributors to lupus, a lupus flare, should we say? Are there any other factors such as who gets it more? Is it women, men?
So women are 90% of the lupus patients in the world. Historically, it's been women of darker skin tones. I am like super pale. But I was a lucky winner of the lupus drawing. I actually have Native American roots, so I don't know if that plays a factor into it. But typically, women, their initial flares are between the ages of 15 and 44. For me, in particular, I was actually a teen mom. And 6 weeks after I gave birth to my son, I was 16 years old, and I was at the gym and I was pulling a bar down back, and I, from the top of my spine all the way down, it like zigzagged down my spine. I heard pop 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 the entire way down my spine, and I felt fine. I was like, okay, I'm all right. And then I woke up the next day and I couldn't move, and I didn't know what happened. I saw chiropractors, and I remember going to my doctor like a couple weeks later. Mind you, I'm a 16-year-old brand new mom, and I'm like, my knees hurt, my elbows hurt. I had a lump in my arm that was really weird, and when I would move my fingers, it would send like shooting pain up my arm. And My doctor looked at me and he said, I'm going to be very honest with you. And he said, there is absolutely no reason a 16-year-old should be complaining of any of these symptoms at all. He said, I am almost certain you either have juvenile rheumatoid arthritis or lupus. And he said, and you don't want it to be lupus. And that was a scary moment for me. And let me tell you, I went home and I researched it, and that's when the flood of symptoms just got worse from there. It was not fun.
Um, Laura, well, this is very interesting. I want to take a quick break, and I want to come back, and I would like to get into more of your experience and the treatment process of treating lupus. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. I'm Dr. Joe Morris, and I'm on the air with Ms. Laura Brock, and you are listening to Informed Consent.
We will be right back after these important announcements.
Informed consent.
Did you know that breast cancer is one of the most common types of cancers amongst women, and that 1 in 8 women will develop the disease in their lifetime? Currently in the United States, it is estimated that approximately 4 million women are living with breast cancer. In fact, health disparities in research studies have indicated that African American women are more likely to develop breast cancer under the age of 50, and they have a much higher mortality rate when compared to white women. In order to help prevent the complications associated with breast cancer, early detection and treatment is currently available. To learn more about breast cancer screening and the treatment options available, please speak with your primary health care provider. Your health is important, so schedule an appointment today. As a reminder, it takes a village working together to make a difference. This is a public service announcement.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Joe Morris, and I'm on the air with Ms. Laura Brock, and we are talking about living with lupus. Laura, are you there?
I'm here.
Yes. So when we last talked in the first half of the show, you were talking about just some of your experience with lupus, how stress can contribute to lupus, the sun, your experience with even being a young mother, and how that's also stress. Being a young parent at that time could also have perhaps exacerbated your living with lupus. But I want to get into treatment and your experience with treatment and possible solutions. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so a rheumatologist is the name of the doctor who treats a lupus patient. I can tell you that I have seen multiple doctors, some great, some not so great. But I will tell you that if you go to a rheumatologist, typically their goal is to put you on one medication, two medication, three medication, four. And I was getting sick even from the side effects of all the medications. I have been on NSAIDs, which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory medications. Your typical, it can, ibuprofen is a type of NSAID. However, I would be on much stronger versions. I was actually on Vioxx, and if anyone's familiar with Vioxx was like taken off the market because it was actually leading people to death. It had side effects, and one of the reasons I became really an advocate for informed consent is because the manufacturer of Vioxx actually knew that Vioxx was having side effects that was leading to death in patients. And in court records, it came out that they hid that data because they did a mathematical statistical evaluation and found that they'd actually make more money selling the drug and paying out later. And so that was very eye-opening to me as a patient, someone who was taking this medicine to try to feel better. I realized I can't trust the medicines, not to mention the medicines caused so many problems for me. When I was 16, I had to sleep with a cup. because I had so much acid in my stomach, and it was causing, I had ulcers from the medication, and I would have to wake up at night and spit pure acid in a cup all night long. I burned my vocal cords. I used to sing. I used to have a really large range in my vocals. And after that, I was raspy for years from spitting up acid. And that's just like, one of the side effects. But I can tell you, treatment, I leaned more toward alternative medicine. I've done acupuncture, chiropractor. I've seen a chiropractor, which is helpful. Also, I saw a heart surgeon who treated his patients through diet. And one of the things that he helped me to understand is that, especially in autoimmune diseases, what you eat really impacts your body. And he recommends for lupus patients basically a caveman diet. So you don't want any processed food whatsoever in your diet. Your body can respond to it very negatively and cause symptoms as a response. So those are some of the ways that I have, treated it. However, when I'm in a really bad flare, it's not an NSAID that I go to. It's steroids and chemo. Uh, People have always thought, oh, lupus, is that a form of cancer? It's not, but they do treat it. They can treat it with chemo. And that is because, it really shuts down your immune system, and so do the steroids. And that's the point of it, is that in lupus, your immune system is going haywire. It is attacking your own cells. And so you want to do anything you can to turn it off. But I had some side effects even from the chemo that you really don't want to talk about. Like, it's scary because you're in so much pain that you can't function, and it's like you want to get out of that state. But then when I turn to chemo, I have side effects such as I would lose my memory, like, severely. I would be in my own neighborhood, on my street, like near my house where I've lived for years, and I'd be like, I don't know where I am. And I started having problems with my bladder, even with low doses of chemo. It's like, wow, like, I have to choose between getting off the couch or getting out of bed or getting out of pain, and keeping my wits about me and being able to, hold my urine. Like, that's a horrible place to have to choose between the two. That's for sure. But I've had I've had quite a bit of treatments. I personally recommend anyone who has any kind of autoimmune disease, or lupus in particular, to definitely go the alternative medicine routes as much as possible, and to take care of yourself.
You have definitely unloaded a lot of valuable information. Um, and for those out there who are listening, who may be living with lupus or have someone who living with lupus, you definitely want to take heed of this podcast. A lot of valuable information. So, Laura, how has this impacted your life personally? So, I've heard you talk about your history and perhaps some treatment. Are there any stigmas or any personal, challenges that one can expect with living with lupus, and how do they overcome those challenges? I know I heard you talk about the medication, but if we can talk about again your personal journey, and so that the listeners can glean from this, and maybe apply it to their personal life.
Absolutely. Well, I will say that it's some of the worst flares of my entire life. I couldn't have got through them without support groups. Um, there are, lupus foundations, there are lupus groups, and Facebook. If you have lupus or even any autoimmune disease, as I've, met many friends who struggle, having people who understand what you're going through makes such a difference. Because, one of the stigmas, I can tell you personally, is that with lupus, a lot of times you look fine. You don't look like you're sick. You don't look like you have any problems. I was a young female, and I would get out of my car with a handicap sticker. And I've had people give me like dirty looks, and not realizing that I am truly handicapped, and I am hurting, and I am tired, and everything. It takes everything out of me, just to walk in the store. With that said, don't judge a book by its cover. You don't know the battle that people are facing. But one of the things that would hurt me as a person, as a family member, as a friend, is that I was called lazy quite often because I just couldn't get out of bed. And it chronic fatigue is a major symptom of lupus. And if you haven't experienced it, you really cannot possibly understand what it's like to wake up tired. You wake up and you want to go back to sleep. You wake up and you think, oh my gosh, I don't have enough energy to brush my hair. It's a horrible place to be. It causes a lot of psychological warfare in your own head. I've had thoughts when not only with chronic fatigue, but especially when it's mixed with pain, because lupus can be severely painful, where the first thought when you wake up is, I just want to die. Like, that is literally your first thought. You're in pain, you're tired, everything hurts, and you don't even know how you're going to face a whole day with no energy and in pain. And so there's definitely stigmas, and it's constant in a bad flare. It doesn't go away. One of my main symptoms, and my doctor had called it, she jokingly called it rupus, because one of my main symptoms is rheumatoid arthritis. When you get up in the morning, you're like, really, everything hurts. And it will lighten up throughout the day and get stronger at night. But some of the other symptoms don't go away. I've had it where it feels like I'm walking on 1,000 knives. Every single nerve at the bottom of my feet are like completely inflamed. And I have to walk on the edges of my feet just to do anything because it's so painful. I've gotten, when I first had my son as a teen mom, I could not even get out of bed. That's how much pain I was in. I had to sleep with a whistle. It was like right around the time cell phones were coming out. And I was living with my parents because I really couldn't function. And I would wake up in the middle of the night and blow a whistle loud if my son was crying and I couldn't get out of bed. That's some of the ways that this has impacted me. It's constant, it's chronic, it's absolutely horrible, and every single flare is different. You never know what you're going to expect. I have not had a single flare, and it's been about I've had it over 20 years now, and not a single flare has been the same symptoms. This list of symptoms is so long of possibilities. It can affect anything that I had mentioned in the beginning of the call, anything.
Well, it sounds like you not only have lived with it for many years, but you seem to have some control over it now, or at least what it appears. I'm assuming that you are at a place now where you're able to manage it better. You're able to advocate for support and better treatment, and you're also able to provide some knowledge in regards to how to manage it. In the next few minutes of our time that we have, and again, thank you for agreeing to be on the show and just share your experience. What would be some final words you would like to share regarding systemic lupus?
I would say that, for one, if you see somebody struggling in any capacity when you're out and about, open the door for them. Hold the door open. Offer to help people. There were so many times in my life when I felt like I was facing the world's biggest challenge, to do what people take for granted. And I made a commitment to myself that I would always pay attention. I would always look around and see, does somebody seem like they might need some help? And you can make such an impact on somebody's life by just paying attention to what's going on. And if you are a sufferer of lupus, I would say seek a support group. There are people who know and understand what you're going through, and there is hope. There is absolutely hope, and I I encourage everyone to become more familiar with lupus in general. It is becoming more and more common. from when I first was diagnosed. I'd never heard of it, and now so many people know someone or personally have lupus. And also be cognizant of the things that you put in your body. And again, that informed consent piece goes back to everything. It goes back to what you're shopping for on the shelf, whether it's food or skincare. It goes back to what you're putting in your body, whether that could be, a medication or any kind of drug whatsoever, even on the, street, anything. Be cognizant of what you put in your body, because our bodies are designed to react in certain ways. And we want to make sure that we are not setting ourselves up to have autoimmune diseases. And, they don't fully understand how and why it happens. But if we can make better decisions to protect ourselves, you trust me, your future self will thank yourself now for making those good decisions.
Well, thank you, Laura. Wow. Well, there you have it, folks. You have now been informed. And Laura, do I have your permission to release this information to the public?
Oh, yes. Hey.
well, thank you. Yes. Well, listen, I thank you from the depths of my heart for being on the show and just sharing not only valuable information regarding lupus and your journey with lupus. And I wish you continue success in your career and in your life. Thank you, Laura, for being on the show. And we will be in touch with you soon.
Join us next time as we continue to explore topics that keep you informed and engaged on matters that promote healthy lifestyle.
Informed consent.